The summer sun beat down mercilessly on Tom Harrison's carefully maintained 5-acre property, a slice of rural paradise he'd worked decades to preserve. He'd inherited the land from his grandfather, a man who taught him that property lines were sacred and respect was earned through clear boundaries. On this particular Saturday morning, Tom knew something was wrong the moment he heard the first splash and the shrill sounds of laughter echoing across his pristine back meadow. Stepping onto his back porch, Tom's jaw clenched as he surveyed the scene unfolding before him. Karen Mitchell, the neighborhood's self-proclaimed social butterfly and perpetual boundary pusher, had somehow managed to set up an entire pool party directly on his land. Bright blue inflatable loungers dotted what was clearly his property, and at least 20 people were splashing, drinking, and acting as if they'd rented some exclusive summer resort. Tom had history with Karen. 2 years ago, she'd accidentally extended her backyard fence 6 feet onto his property, claiming a surveying mistake. When he politely requested she move the fence, she laughed it off, calling him a grumpy old man who was too obsessed with meaningless details. The local homeowners association had been no help, always seeming to side with Karen's charismatic complaints and dramatic storytelling. But this was a step too far. He could see the telltale signs of her elaborate setup. Expensive catering tables lined with gourmet snacks, a professional sound system pumping out loud summer hits, and a massive inflatable pool that looked like it could host a small marine expedition. Children were running across his carefully maintained grass, leaving muddy footprints. Adults were lounging on his land as if it were a public beach, cocktails in hand, completely oblivious to the property lines. Tom noticed Karen herself, dressed in an oversized sun hat and a designer swimsuit, holding court near the pool's edge. She was laughing loudly, making grand gestures with a mimosa in her hand, clearly the queen of this unauthorized gathering. Her teenage daughter, Emma, looked slightly embarrassed, but was trying to maintain her cool among her friends. What Karen didn't know, what none of these uninvited guests realized, was that Tom was not just a retired property owner. He was a former agricultural engineer who understood exactly how to make a point. And right now, a plan was forming in his mind. A plan that would teach Karen a lesson about respecting boundaries that she would never forget. He walked back into his house, pulled out his phone, and made a series of calculated calls. His weathered fingers dialed with precision, a hint of a smile playing at the corners of his mouth. The revenge he was planning wasn't just about property. It was about principle. And in rural communities, principles were everything. By the time Karen and her guests would realize what was coming, it would be far too late to pack up and run. Tom Harrison was about to transform this unauthorized pool party into a moment of local legend, a story that would be whispered about in local diners and discussed at community meetings for years to come. The summer was about to get very interesting. Within 2 hours of Tom's strategic phone calls, the first truck arrived. It wasn't a catering truck or a party supply vehicle. It was a large, mud-splattered livestock trailer from Wilkins Farm, a local agricultural operation Tom had maintained a friendship with for decades. Jake Wilkins, a burly man in his mid-50s, jumped down from the driver's seat, a knowing grin spreading across his face. "You sure about this, Tom?" he asked, already unhooking the trailer's latch. "Never been more certain," Tom replied, his voice calm and resolute. The first group of pigs emerged, not the cute pink piglets one might see in a children's book, but robust, mud-covered farm pigs with an uncanny ability to tear up ground and create absolute chaos. These were working pigs, bred for strength and resilience, not some manicured show animals. Karen was mid-conversation when the first pig touched the grass. She was telling a group of her friends about her latest home renovation project, gesturing dramatically with her mimosa, when a massive Yorkshire pig wandered directly through her catering spread. Expensive cheese platters went flying. Champagne glasses toppled. The pristine white tablecloth became an instant canvas of mud and pig tracks. Screams erupted. Guests who moments ago were lounging confidently now scrambled in every direction. Children were scooped up. Designer swimwear was splashed with mud. The expensive sound system, still blaring summer pop hits, became a backdrop to the growing pandemonium. Emma, Karen's daughter, tried to maintain some semblance of dignity. "Mom," she yelled, "what is happening?" But Karen was too shocked to respond, her carefully curated pool party transforming into an agricultural nightmare. Tom watched from his back porch, arms crossed, a study in calculated restraint. Jake continued to unload pigs strategically, not randomly, but with a precise understanding of how to maximize disruption. Some pigs headed toward the inflatable pool, their massive bodies causing immediate deflation. Others wandered through the carefully arranged lounge areas, leaving trails of mud and destruction. "You're making a statement," Jake commented, watching the chaos unfold. "Sometimes," Tom replied, "a message needs to be loud to be heard." The local gossip mill would be working overtime. By the end of the day, everyone would know about the day Karen Mitchell's pool party was overtaken by farm pigs. And Tom, he was just getting started. As guests fled and Karen stood in the middle of her ruined party, mud-splattered and bewildered, Tom allowed himself a small, satisfied smile. Revenge, he had learned over the years, was a dish best served with a side of agricultural precision. The aftermath of the pig invasion was nothing short of spectacular. By Monday morning, the entire community was abuzz with the story of Tom Harrison's unprecedented revenge. Local diners, gas stations, and community centers rang with whispers, laughter, and disbelief at Karen Mitchell's humiliation. Karen, however, was not one to take defeat lightly. She stormed into the local sheriff's office, her designer sunglasses barely concealing her fury, demanding that Tom be arrested for property destruction and harassment. Sheriff Mike Roberts, a longtime resident who knew both Tom and Karen, listened with practiced patience. "Let me get this straight," Sheriff Roberts said, reviewing her complaint. "You held a pool party on Tom Harrison's private property without his permission, and now you're upset because he had livestock on his own land?" Karen's face flushed. "Those pigs destroyed thousands of dollars of catering equipment. My daughter's reputation is ruined. Everyone is talking about this." Her voice rose with each sentence, drawing curious glances from the office staff. The sheriff leaned back, a hint of amusement in his eyes. He pulled out the property survey documents Karen herself had conveniently ignored during her impromptu pool party. The lines were crystal clear. Every single inch where the party had been held was unquestionably Tom Harrison's property. Meanwhile, Tom was dealing with his own aftermath. The local agricultural community found his revenge both hilarious and justified. Jake Wilkins and other farmers would stop by, barely containing their laughter, bringing him coffee and trading stories about boundary-pushing neighbors. "You become a local legend," Jake told him one morning, slapping him on the back. "Nobody pulls a stunt like this and gets away with it so cleanly." But Karen wasn't finished. She hired the most aggressive lawyer in the county, a sharp-tongued attorney named Richard Stemmons, who specialized in property disputes. Stemmons was known for turning minor disagreements into epic legal battles, and he saw this as his chance to make a significant statement. The formal legal notice arrived at Tom's mailbox just 3 days after the pig incident. There was a cease and desist order coupled with a threat of a civil lawsuit for damages. The document was filled with legal jargon attempting to paint Tom as a vindictive property owner who had intentionally caused emotional and financial harm. Tom read the document carefully, a wry smile playing on his lips. He'd been dealing with property disputes longer than Stemmons had been practicing law. This was just the beginning of what promised to be an epic confrontation. His granddaughter, Sarah, a brilliant young lawyer working in a prestigious city firm, was coming home for a visit, and Tom knew that with her legal expertise and his local knowledge, Karen and her high-powered attorney were about to learn that messing with his property was a battle they were ill-prepared to fight. The pig invasion was just the first salvo in a war that was about to get very interesting. Sarah and Harrison arrived precisely 2 weeks after the infamous pig party, driving a sleek silver hybrid that looked comically out of place on the dusty rural roads. A Harvard Law graduate with a reputation for precision and wit, she brought more than just legal expertise. She brought a strategic mind that matched her grandfather's cunning. The family dining room became their war room. Old property maps spread across the antique oak table, with Tom meticulously pointing out every single boundary marker, every historical document that proved his land ownership. Sarah listened intently, her sharp legal mind already constructing a defense that would make Richard Stemmons rue the day he took Karen's case. "Grandfather," Sarah said, adjusting her reading glasses, "Karen's lawsuit is laughable, but we need to be prepared for every possible angle." She had already begun drafting a comprehensive response highlighting not just the legality of Tom's actions, but the broader principle of property rights. Meanwhile, Karen was mounting her own campaign of reputation destruction. She started a neighborhood petition claiming Tom was a menace, plastering local community boards with dramatically worded flyers about the pig invasion. But the local community, who knew Tom's reputation as a respected landowner, wasn't buying her narrative. The turning point came during a community meeting at the local town hall. Karen, dressed in her most expensive power suit, took the microphone to rally support against Tom. "This man deliberately destroyed my private event. He unleashed farm animals on innocent people." Her voice quivered with manufactured emotion. Tom sat quietly in the back of the room, Sarah beside him. When the town council opened the floor for Tom's response, Sarah stood up. Her presence was commanding, a stark contrast to the local small-town lawyers. "Let me clarify a few facts," she began, her voice clear and precise. "My client's property was illegally occupied. No permits were obtained. No permission was requested. The individuals in question were trespassing on private property." She proceeded to pull out a series of photographs, detailed shots showing the exact property lines, images of the party setup clearly extending beyond Karen's boundary, drone footage that Tom had strategically commissioned months earlier, showing the precise property demarcations. The room went silent. Richard Stemmons, Karen's high-powered attorney, shifted uncomfortably. This was not the easy victory he had anticipated. Sarah had just transformed a seemingly ridiculous pig invasion into a textbook case of property rights defense. But Tom and Sarah knew the legal battle was just beginning. Karen was not the type to back down easily. She would fight, and she would fight dirty. The pig invasion was merely the opening salvo in what promised to be an epic legal and personal confrontation. As they left the town hall, Tom squeezed Sarah's hand. "Your grandmother would have loved this," he whispered, referring to his late wife who had always appreciated a well-executed plan. Sarah simply smiled. The real battle was just about to begin. The final resolution came in a way nobody expected, with a twist that would become local legend for years to come. The county courthouse was packed on the day of the hearing. Tom sat quietly beside Sarah, who looked impeccable in a tailored navy suit that commanded respect. Karen, by contrast, appeared increasingly desperate. Her expensive lawyer, Richard Stemmons, shuffled papers nervously, realizing their case was paper-thin. What Stemmons didn't know was that Sarah had uncovered a critical piece of information during her investigation. While preparing for the case, she discovered an old property document that would change everything. During the hearing, she presented evidence that Karen's property line had actually been incorrectly surveyed decades ago, meaning she had been inadvertently using a small portion of Tom's land for years. The judge, a no-nonsense woman named Elizabeth Harding, listened intently as Sarah methodically dismantled Karen's lawsuit. But the real bombshell was yet to come. Furthermore, Sarah announced, her voice cutting through the courtroom silence, "My client is willing to offer Ms. Mitchell a solution that benefits both parties." Karen looked confused. Tom had a twinkle in his eye. The proposal was elegantly simple. Tom would allow Karen to legally purchase a small strip of land where her fence and part of her property had encroached, but at a price that would make her think twice about future boundary violations. The cost would be substantial, calculated not just by square footage, but by years of unauthorized use. Emma, Karen's daughter, whispered something to her mother. For the first time, Karen looked genuinely uncomfortable. The judge seemed impressed by the creative resolution. Instead of a prolonged legal battle, Tom and Sarah had crafted a solution that addressed the property dispute while holding Karen accountable for her previous actions. As they left the courthouse, the local media was waiting. Tom gave a brief, dignified statement about respecting property rights and neighborly boundaries. Sarah stood beside him, a protective and proud guardian of her grandfather's legacy. The pig invasion became a local story of legendary proportions. At community gatherings, people would recount the tale, how Tom Harrison had defended his property not just with farm animals, but with strategic brilliance and unwavering principle. Karen was forced to pay a significant sum for the land and legal fees. Her reputation in the community was irreparably damaged. The next time she considered hosting an event, she would think twice about property lines. Months later, Tom received a handwritten apology from Emma, Karen's daughter. She acknowledged her mother's behavior and thanked Tom for teaching her a valuable lesson about respect and boundaries. As for the pigs, they returned to Wilkins' farm, unaware they had become local heroes. Tom would occasionally visit, sharing a knowing smile with Jake Wilkins about the day they'd made local history. In the end, it wasn't just about a pool party or property lines. It was about standing up for what was right with creativity, intelligence, and just a touch of farm animal-assisted justice.